The wood smoke curls up thin and blue in the cold night air, smelling of pine and 10,000 memories just like this one. The fire spits a little constellation of orange sparks into the blackness, and for a second they look just like the stage lights used to look from the side. A quick, brilliant flash that's gone before you can even name it. In my head, I can hear the opening chords. That steady chugging rhythm, like a train you can't stop. A train that only goes one way. Everyone thinks they know the story of Billy Joe. A simple lesson for a simple farm boy. But that's not the story John was telling in the studio that day. He wasn't writing a cautionary tale. He was writing a confession, and he was changing the names to protect the guilty. Mostly to protect himself. So the question, the one that's been sitting on my chest for 60-some years, isn't why Billy Joe died in that saloon. The real question is, whose ghost was Johnny Cash trying to put in the ground for good by telling the story all wrong? My name is Leo. You won't find it on the front of any album covers, but it's etched into the vinyl of a few dozen records from back then. On the Union sheets, a session guitarist who was mostly just trying not to be noticed. I'm sitting out here behind my house in Tennessee, the same one I've been in since the touring money was good. In my palm, I've got this old Fender teardrop guitar pick, worn smooth as a river stone. It's the one I used on that session. The edge is chipped. I remember exactly when it happened, the moment my hand shook and I hit the string just a little too hard. It was the moment John looked up from his notepad, and I saw the truth of the song in his eyes. A truth he was about to burn down and build a whole new story on top of the ashes. The world got the hit record, the moral of the story, the neat little package. But I was in the room for the real version. And with the years I've got left, sitting here with this cold air in my lungs, it feels like a sin to be the only one who still knows it. It's time to pay the debt. It's time to tell the story of the real boy. We were at the studio on a Tuesday, I think. A hot, sticky afternoon that made the air in the room feel thick and heavy, like you were breathing through wool. The place smelled of old wood, stale cigarette smoke, and hot vacuum tubes from the amps. I was just a kid, barely 20, and mostly kept my mouth shut and my ears open, watching giants move. And John, well, he wasn't the man in black yet. Not really. He was still just John. He walked in, not with that confident stage swagger, but quiet and haunted. He had a folded piece of paper and his guitar, and he didn't say much. He just sat on a stool under the single bare microphone and started playing a chord progression. It was dark, minor key. He hummed a few words, something about a boy on a farm. But then he stopped. He looked at us, me, Marshall Grant on the bass, Luther Perkins with his shimmering guitar, and he said, I knew a boy back in Dias. He didn't say his name was Billy Joe. He said his name was Finn. And there was a complication in his voice, a knot he couldn't untangle. He told us Finn wasn't restless. He said Finn was running from something. But he never said what. The weight of that untold story of what Finn was running from, it's never left me. For years, I couldn't even listen to the song on the radio. I'd just changed the station. It felt like being an accomplice to a crime. Every time I heard that opening line, I didn't see some smiling cowboy. I saw the face of a scared kid I'd never met. A ghost John had called into the room and then dressed up in a different set of clothes, so nobody would recognize him. The lie felt louder to me than the music. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? When you hear a story song, how much of the real blood got washed out before it reached the microphone? What song has that feeling for you? You can look it up, the official story. The session logs will tell you Don't Take Your Guns to Town was recorded on July 13th, 1958. Just another track laid down on a day's work. A simple 3-chord country song that became a massive crossover hit. The record is clean, simple, but a memory isn't a record. A memory has dust on it. It has echoes. The memory of that room wasn't clean. It was charged, electric with something unspoken. The official record says we cut the track in a few takes, eh? My memory says we spent an hour waiting for John to find the words, and that the words he found weren't the ones he started with or. Back in the studio, the air was getting tight. John kept trying to write the second verse, and he kept crossing things out. He'd sing a line, shake his head, and tear off a piece of the paper. We were all just watching him, nobody daring to speak. He was wrestling with it, with the ghost of Finn. He looked up, his eyes black and deep, and he stared right through me. "A man's got a right to his own ghosts, don't he, Leo?" he asked. His voice was quiet, but it hit me like a physical blow. That's when I understood. He wasn't just writing a song. He was building a tombstone, and he was about to carve the wrong name on it. He had this look in his eye, a look I'd see again over the years when the darkness was winning. It's in those moments you see the real person, and that's the only story I'm interested in telling. If you want to hear more of what it was like in the room where the legends were made, stick around by subscribing. You won't get the polished version here. You'll get the truth, with all the chips and scratches still on it. I'm looking at this fire now, watching the embers glow and fade, and it's like I'm seeing his face in the control room glass that day. He was burying a boy he felt he couldn't save, burying him under a rhyme. He stopped, strumming his guitar. The whole studio went dead quiet. All you could hear was the low hum of the tape machine, spinning and capturing nothing but silence. And in that silence, I saw it all. He was hiding the truth in plain sight. He finally spoke, his voice raspy and low, almost a whisper. "The boy's name was Finn," he said again, softer this time. "And he wasn't restless. He was scared." He told us the real story then, not for the record, just for the room. Finn wasn't a cowboy. He was a dirt-poor farm kid from his own childhood in Arkansas. A neighbor. And the guns weren't a matched set of Colts hanging on his hips for show. It was his father's old, rusty shotgun, and he didn't take it to town to prove he was a man. He took it to escape one. The real story, the one John was trying to choke down, was that Finn's father was a mean, violent drunk. The boy was covered in bruises you couldn't see, and a few you could. One night, after a particularly bad beating, Finn took the shotgun not to hurt anyone, but to make sure his father wouldn't follow him when he ran away for good. He was heading for the bus station, for anywhere else. He wasn't looking for a drink or a fight. He was looking for a way out, but the father came after him. It wasn't a dusty cowpoke who laughed him down. It was his own blood. And it didn't happen in a saloon. It happened in the gravel parking lot of the bus depot, under a single flickering yellow light. There was no fair fight. No draw. There was just a scared kid and a monster he couldn't escape. So the answer to the question, the reason for the lie, is that John couldn't live with the ugliness of the truth. He couldn't sing about a boy who never had a chance. He couldn't put that kind of pointless, ugly suffering on a record. So he gave the boy a choice. He gave him pride. He turned Finn into Billy Joe, a boy filled with wanderlust and a foolish heart, because that was a tragedy you could learn from. The story of a boy beaten to death by his own father in a dusty parking lot. That wasn't a lesson. That was just a hole in the world. John wasn't being dishonest. He was being merciful, maybe to the boy's memory, but mostly, I think, to himself. The mistake, the unforgivable part that he carried, was knowing he had to sanitize a boy's whole life and death, just to make it bearable enough to sing about. So now, when I hear that line, a boy filled with wanderlust who really meant no harm, I hear John's prayer for a boy who never had the choice. The harm was already done to him, long before he ever picked up that gun. That's the part of the story that gets left behind, I guess. The part that doesn't fit the rhyme. Tell me in the comments who the real Billy Joe was in your town, the one whose story everyone thinks they know. And if you want more stories from the other side of the glass, the ones that didn't make it onto the records, subscribe and hit that super like. It helps me keep these memories alive, for as long as I've got left.